Welcome to Passion of the Geeks, the show in which two friends and fellow geeks talk about geek and pop culture and everything else we enjoy. I am Pat.
And I'm Greg.
And let's get on with it. Hey, Greg.
Hi, Pat.
Nice to hear you again.
Same here.
Yeah, today's episode is all about hearing, as we're going to talk about music in games.
Very excited about this topic.
Oh, yes, we truly are. But before we get into the music, let's get into our usual Today I Found Out segment. Greg, did you find out anything?
Yes, of the two of us, I'm the one who's really excited about the Last of Us TV show that's coming out. I mean, you revealed a couple of weeks ago that you're not the biggest fan of the Last of Us. That could not change my excitement. So, and apparently they now have Joel and Ellie cast for the TV show. So Pedro Pascal gets another chance to escort some child across lost vestiges of land. Just as in the Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal gets the main role. And Bella Ramsey, some people might know her as Lyanna Mormont from Game of Thrones. She's going to play Ellie. And I have to admit, I'm quite happy with this casting. Pedro Pascal is always very watchable, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna do a pretty good job. And I'm just excited for him that he can finally play a role without just, without the helmet on the whole time.
And I mean, his role in Wonder Woman, we don't talk about that.
I mean, here's the thing. He was actually quite watchable in that movie, I thought.
Oh, well, that's actually true. Yeah.
So I'm just happy for him and probably his publicist who said, Pedro, you need to get a role where we can see your face.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Helps a lot, yeah.
But, I'm not a huge fan of Last of Us 2, the game, but I'm really looking forward to see what they're trying to do with Last of Us 1, because playing it again, I didn't like it as much as I remembered, but it's always a different media, and I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic, as we so often are.
Yeah.
It's going to be a title of an episode at one point, Cautiously Optimistic, all the things we're looking forward to.
We need to do that, yeah.
Yeah. What news do you have for us?
Yeah, I thought I will make some space news today. So we'll talk about some space news today. And I kind of wanted it to be connected to our Armageddon / The Core episode, because I thought it is fun.
And because that's definitely not one of our most favorite episodes. Well, maybe our favorites, but listener-wise, that's one of the episodes that does not have that many listeners, so we should push that episode, actually.
Yeah, that's true. If you haven't listened to it yet, go. It's an awesome episode. All the similarities and differences about Armageddon and The Core. It's a great little episode. I had a lot of fun. But anyway, let's talk about Armageddon, because it will be fun. This year, one of the asteroids, one of the bigger asteroids called Apophis, will be close to Earth in March 5th, 2021. And I mean, it will still be at the distance of roughly 40 times the distance of the moon to Earth. And just to put it into perspective, the distance between moon and Earth is big enough to fit all of our solar system's planets into it. So it's quite a distance. But Apophis will return 2 times, one in 2029, I think, and one in 2068. And there is actually a possibility that it will collide with Earth. It's just 1 to 38,000. But we kind of wanted to bring it down to a 0 possibility, and it will be interesting for NASA to make calculations when Apophis is near Earth to have chances recalculated. But I don't think they will send some drillers up there.
Probably not. Probably not. What wasn't Apophis the villain in the Stargate series?
Yeah, because it's actually the Egyptian god of chaos. So, yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
I thought the name sounded familiar. Okay.
Yeah. And in the core, we have another asteroid that has a fixed, that is fixed in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and that's called 16 Psyche. And the interesting part about that asteroid is that it's not made of rock, but actually of iron and nickel. And it's the same thing the Earth's core is made of. So NASA thinks if they go there and they will analyze it and see if it has traces of a magnetic field, which would then imply that 16 Psyche might be part of a core of a protoplanet that had been destroyed eons ago. And that's kind of interesting. And the mission will start in 2026, but it has been greenlit now, so it will happen. Maybe they jumpstart it and there will be a new planet. I don't know.
Okay.
So interesting space.
Yeah, the core and Armageddon as space news. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. But let's go on to our Check This Out segment. Greg, do you have something?
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since our last full-fledged episode, so I had lots of time to play and watch lots of things. So I want to mention 2 games I've played in the last 2 weeks. I started playing Hitman 3, the newest game in the Hitman series. I've quite enjoyed Hitman 2. And the thing is, if you liked Hitman 2, you're gonna love Hitman 3. It's more of the same, and I mean that is a good thing. And I think what IOI truly did this time is kind of they outdid themselves kind of with the complexities and the designs of the level. Level 2 in the new game is basically just the movie Knives Out as a computer game. And for me, kind of, I have to admit, I don't really play it for the story. I played for the sandbox. And some of the levels, especially the second one, is just such a great sandbox. So much fun to play in it that I've actually replayed the second level a couple of times and instead of continuing playing the game because, yeah, I just wanted to master that level. I wanted to kind of figure out all the tiny little bits on how to play that level or kind of ways to, complete my contracts. And it's so fun because obviously you have to kill someone and get some stuff. But there's also murder mystery that you can solve while doing that. So it's a really cool level. So Hitman 3, highly recommend that one. And the other game, I'm a little bit late to that party. I started playing Control. I could download it for free on the PlayStation Store. What's it called? PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Now. I keep forgetting that. And I'm quite enjoying it. It's a Metroidvania game. I really enjoy the mechanics. And the story is kind of, a little bit horror story, kind of weird objects. It reminds me a little bit of a horror movie with kind of, a little bit Lovecraftian even. So quite enjoying that, especially the mechanics. I'm a couple of hours in, so I haven't seen most of the oldest towers, but I'm quite enjoying the gameplay so far. So Control. So if you have PlayStation, I think it's PlayStation Plus, download it. It's free. And I think it's a pretty cool game. So Hitman 3 and Control. I enjoyed playing those 2 games.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm a huge Hitman fan. I've played the old ones and then the kind of the reimagining IO made. I haven't gotten Hitman 3 yet. I didn't have time, but I'm looking forward to it now even more so.
I haven't played the old Hitman games. Kind of the old ones, they were a little bit different than the new ones. It was more like, just go into somewhere and shoot people.
Well, you could certainly do that. But the Hitman series has always been a series about puzzles. How could you commit the murder in the most original way so that you're not found out?
The old ones as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They were not quite as open as they are now. Okay. The levels were smaller, of course, and there had been a couple of bigger levels, but they often ended to be more about shooting than about puzzling how you will commit that murder. Yeah. But it's fun. Hitman is a really fun series. So I agree. I'm looking forward to Hitman 3. I tried Control for a while. I bought it first thing when it was released. I liked the mechanics a lot. I just couldn't get into the story. And this is where I stopped playing. I have a lot of other things. And to me, if the story doesn't grip me, I usually play something else.
Okay.
Maybe I would give it a chance somewhere down the road, but right now I haven't played through it.
I'm quite enjoying it. Yeah, quite enjoying it.
It's very well made, both from the gameplay mechanics and technologically speaking. It's a well-made game.
What about you? What do you have to check out for us this week?
Yeah, well, I have an old movie. And I know there are a lot of things I should watch, but I have spent my time watching movies with a movie from 1978 called Message from Space. It's a Japanese space opera. It has a couple of English-speaking actors in there, so you quite have a difference between the redubbed Japanese actors and the English-speaking actors. It's a movie that, if it would have been a little bit later, you probably would call it a Star Wars ripoff. And honestly, some parts of the movie are so Star Warsy that I think, did they see a pre-cut of Star Wars or anything? Because, it might be a little spoiler, but they have to destroy a big planet by flying into a tunnel. That's just big enough for some hotshot. It was the most expensive Japanese movie back when it was released, just a year after Star Wars. And while Star Wars manages to have a sort of a timelessness going on, Message from Space kind of feels very late 70s disco. I mean, it's fun to watch. I think the special effects look great. Not quite as good as Star Wars did, but it's a fun movie. It's not a good movie, but it's certainly watchable trash. Have you seen it?
I don't remember. I'm not sure if I've seen it or not. And it sounds interesting. I mean, my biggest problem is just kind of for weeks now, I've been going on and on and on like a broken record how good, for example, WandaVision is. And what are you doing watching a movie from 1978? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know.
and I think this movie probably is 90 minutes, 2 hours long.
Yeah, Yeah, almost 2 hours. I think 1 hour and 40 minutes or something.
I mean, that's basically enough time to catch up on 5 out of 6 episodes of WandaVision.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sorry to the listeners who are now face palming.
And I mean, you're kind of 70s disco sci-fi. I mean, you have that in WandaVision as well.
Oh yeah,
you have this 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You have all of it.
I will certainly do that as quickly as possible. The thing is, I'm a huge fan of these handmade 70s and 80s and 60s sci-fi and fantasy movies. And I just love them. I've recently also watched Labyrinth and Time Bandits. And oh no, I shouldn't tell you I've watched more than that. That should I?
I mean, Labyrinth and Time Bandits, those are at least movies that the general population agrees on that they're good.
They are, yeah.
I mean, and I'm not paid by Disney or whatever, but apparently WandaVision is now the most watched TV show on the planet at the moment.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, they have about 100 million Disney Plus subscribers, and I think a lot of them actually watched it because you have word of mouth and stuff like that. And so, yeah, everyone besides Pat is watching that one. I think that's all I'm going to say about this for now.
And I have to change that because actually I find the idea of watching an episode and then waiting for a week, I find that cool. I'm not a binge watcher. I find the idea to have the time to process what happened, I find that intriguing.
Just one last comment about that. And actually, that works really well for WandaVision because usually at the end of an episode, something really, really weird happens. And it's really cool if you have a week to think about it and what it means and what the ramifications are. So, yeah. Get on the train while it's still running.
I will do that tonight. I promise, Greg.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure you do.
That's it. Okay. All right then. But before I get more flack, let's carry on to our story of the week.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted to talk about game music, and we deliberately kept everything very, very open, and each of us tried a different way to get to what we wanted to present today, because we thought each of us would present 5 short tunes. And yeah, how did you get to it, Greg?
Well, first thing I decided for myself is that I did not want just to do another list of 5 awesome tunes that could be film music as well. So I tried to make sure that the music I chose was specific to video games, served purpose in video games, and was not just another epic score cue. Because, I mean, let's be honest, there's really cool, epic music in video games done by exactly the same composers as they do the music for those big blockbusters as well. And I wanted to go a little bit more on the side of, let's choose music that serves a purpose in video games, that enhances your play experience, that had an impact on the way I played the game, and just was more specific to video games than just cool music. Because I think kind of the difference between music in movies and music in games is that in a movie, the experience of listening to the music has been preset and determined by someone other than me. And when I'm playing a game, usually the music follows my play style. Kind of, there's lots of loops and stuff like that, or kind of the music changes depending on what I do. And I think the experience of almost being a performer of video game music, or kind of the music and you together performing the game, I always thought that was something inherently interesting about video game music. And that's why I chose or tried to choose music that really enhanced the gameplay experience for me. Mm-hmm. What was your approach?
Yeah, the problem was for me to limit myself to 5 tunes. And I went at it by going kind of the same thing that we did last time, but just having epic cues. And then at one point, I was kind of thinking if that was the right direction. And I very quickly had a short talk with you because, I kind of wasn't really into that because, like you, I didn't want to have another epic score moment episode, even though this is certainly something we need to redo because it was fun going to these epic moments.
Definitely going to be another episode like this, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to go at it chronologically in a history way. And I wanted to look at it from the perspective of home computers and how they evolved, how their sound capabilities evolved through the development of new sound technology inside computers. And so this is what I decided to have a tune from some of the major sound hardware that existed.
Okay, so 2 very, very different approaches.
Yeah.
Should be an interesting list to go through.
Yeah, I think so too. This will be interesting. So, Greg, why don't you start?
I'm gonna start with a classic, and I'm just gonna say it. Tetris Theme. What can you say about the Tetris theme and the Tetris game that hasn't been said before? I just think that the Tetris theme, just like the game, is simple, effective, and keeps you engaged for, let's be honest, what used to be long Tetris sessions. Kind of one gameplay or one mode in the game was literally to play Tetris as long as possible. And obviously you needed music that helped you focus. So the Tetris theme, apparently based on an old folk song, Koro Beiniki, composed, arranged by Hirokazu Tanaka. I just think that of all the Game Boy music, that I think, at least in my humble opinion, Tetris is probably the best and most famous one.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if there is a piece of game music that is iconic, that transcended video games, it's Tetris. I mean, everyone knows the Tetris theme. Everyone. So, yeah. Tetris needs to be on the list.
Indeed. And now I won't get it out of my head for the next couple of weeks. No, that's a great choice. And I think it, as you said, it fits perfectly to the chaos that is Tetris, the chaos that you try to sort into something orderly. It works so well. And there's really not much I can add to that. Great choice.
I mean, I should add there is a Tetris theme B and C. That's actually what they're called. And I think kind of it helps that there is kind of, there are 2 other tunes to break up the repetition. But I think Tetris theme A is the iconic one.
Definitely.
and B and C, kind of the variety, help make the moments when theme A comes back even more iconic. So that's why, Tetris, first thing I wrote down, and it never went off my list. What's your first choice for our music and games list?
I was starting with a Commodore 64 title, Commando from 1985, and it's The Main Theme by Rob Hubbard. Yeah, this is a very, very great theme, and it's basically the only music you get throughout the game. It's the title music, it's the in-level music, and it helps that it sounds so awesome. You know, the problem with music in the C64 was that everything else came before the music, the programming, the graphics, and musicians for the C64 had to kind of use whatever little space they had left, which meant that they had to cheat a lot. They had to program the music, that they could not write sheet music or anything. They had to program it. So musicians had to be programmers as well. And they had to use every little trick they could to fit their music on the rest of the memory by using, for example, loops and just saying that the program needs to repeat that loop and so on and so forth. Rob Hubbard is a legend on the C64. He did a lot of awesome music, and a lot of music he did was kind of either heavily inspired or, well, stolen. But that didn't diminish anything, because that was cool as well to hear orchestral pieces or real music reduced for the SID chip to just 3 independent channels that he could use. And that was really, really great. But Commando is a theme that he wrote himself, and I love it. It's one of my favorite C64 themes. Did you like it?
Thing is, I actually enjoyed this piece of music. What I think is, and I would argue that whether or not music is stolen or heavily borrowed or whatever doesn't really matter, because I think the artistry was in arranging the music for the SID chip.
Yes. Definitely.
And I think there is artistry involved in that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds a little frilly at times, perhaps, a little shrill, but it's just how the SID sounded. And, it's a legendary music chip, so it's cool.
Yeah. Good choice.
Thank you. Then back to you, Greg.
I'm going to keep it simple and iconic. Hyrule Field, A Link to the Past. I wanted to have Zelda music on my list. I debated with myself, do I go with something a little bit more modern, with a little bit more orchestra, kind of where the orchestra really swells? But then I thought, no, Zelda: Link to the Past, especially the Hyrule Field track by Koji Kondo, that's the iconic Zelda sound. That's the sound that instilled this sense of adventure and kind of, in a way, captures the long and old history of Hyrule. And it's just everything that made me enjoy A Link to the Past and any other Zelda game can be summed up by, it's basically the simple Zelda theme that instills the sense of adventure. And this version of it hits the nostalgia button as well. So even though obviously the Zelda theme with an orchestra sounds a lot more soaring, a lot more uplifting, but it doesn't hit the nostalgia button 100%. And when you hear the old school Nintendo sound, every time I hear this, I just want to go on an adventure. And I think that's what the intention was.
And that works flawlessly. I mean, that's such an iconic song. And as you said, the version of A Link to the Past is also one of my favorite versions. Probably because, I mean, A Link to the Past is still my favorite Zelda game. And it works so well. It takes exactly what the sound chip of the Super Nintendo could do. And it's a wonderful piece. And I mean, whenever I hear the theme, I would go outside, take a wooden sword and get some monsters as well. So there's just not that many monsters anymore.
Good thing.
Yeah, good thing. As is your choice. Very good.
Thanks. So what's your next item on the list?
My second is one for the PC, and you don't need to be afraid. It won't be the PC beeper. It's the first de facto standard sound card that I'm using now. It's the Adlib card, and the song I'm playing is called Warsong from the 1992 game Dune. So Dune is a very special game. It's sort of a mix between an adventure and a little bit of strategy. It's made by a French company called Cryo. And the composer, Stéphane Pic, decided to have a more, let's say, ethereal soundtrack for that game. It doesn't use an equivalent of a real instrument. It's really more like a sort of a sound carpet that he's making. And that's a good thing, because the Adlib card was just a simple FM synthesis card, and it couldn't do any good instrument. It couldn't do any digitized sounds or anything. So that was the limit that he had. And he used it perfectly for Dune. Dune does support other sound cards, but arguably it just sounds best on Adlib. Have you ever played the original Dune game?
No, I haven't. I've obviously listened to the music, and I have to admit, just most music inspired by the Dune franchise. I usually enjoy music inspired by Dune. And the music from this game is no exception to that.
Yeah. It's very atmospheric, very ethereal. I think it's very fitting music for the game. The game is so-so. It has its qualities, but a lot of people just love the soundtrack. All right, then, let's go back to you, Greg.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it simple and iconic. The original music for Doom by Robert Prince. I remember hearing this music when I played Doom many, many, many years ago. And yeah, just like the game, it immediately gets you pumped. You know what you have to do. The electric guitar through a MIDI speaker, obviously not a real thing, but it was enough to convey the intensity of Doom. Was enough to get you riled up and use your chainsaw to, kill those monsters or those monsters from hell on Mars. And yeah, it's just, as I said before, I like music that immediately gets me into the mood and the kind of gameplay mode for a certain game. And the Doom soundtrack is no exception there. It's totally rock. That's why you need the electric guitar.
Completely true. It pumps you. It gets you going. It's exciting. It's a wonderful and very iconic music. Everyone knows that tune. A really good choice. Doom, the first level music.
Yeah. What about you? What's your next one on the list?
Okay, I go a little bit further away from the PC and the limited ad-lib. The next system I want to talk about is the Amiga. And I thought I just needed to have something by Chris Hülsbeck. So what I'm showing now is from Turrican 3, the ending and credits theme. Chris Hülsbeck is legendary. He's such a great composer. It's just great music he made. And for all the Turrican games, they are legendary. I didn't want to have a main theme here. I wanted to have something a little bit calmer. And I think his ending and credits theme for Turrican 3 fits perfectly. It's something that shows what the Amiga was able to do. I mean, it just had 4 channels, but these were 4 stereo channels, and a good programmer, a good musician could do a lot with it. And you can also hear that he used some sampled percussion in it. There were quite a few things that the Amiga could do back then that the PC first couldn't. And yeah, it's a wonderful, a very serene tune that I love for a game that got you pumped throughout. You're full on adrenaline. You defeat the big boss. And then there's this calming music. And it's something that wasn't very common, or it just became more common back then with the Amiga to have real ending sequences and a real credit sequence and everything with its own music. And I thought that was really wonderful. How did you enjoy the ending sequence?
I haven't played the game, unfortunately, but the music is very, very cool. Kind of, if I imagine I'm playing through a game and that's my reward at the end, I think I might enjoy that quite a lot, honestly.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, it was a reward. We were always looking forward to when you played a game to get to the next level, not just because you wanted to play more, but to see, say, new graphics, to hear a new music and everything. And once you had the game finished, the ending theme that was specifically written for that was really a reward for us. Yeah. So that was Turrican 3 for the Amiga. And back to you.
Yeah, we're at number 4 at this point. So I love adventure games. I always did. So one of my pieces of music needed to be from an adventure game. And I decided to take one from one of my favorites. The opening theme from Grim Fandango by Peter McConnell. I love Grim Fandango. I love this music, and everything I said before about the music enhancing the gameplay. I think in this case, it's the music really helping you or helping the game selling the story, selling the setting, and selling the humor. Because, I mean, this music sounds way too serious for the game. But because the game has this film noirish vibe, it's ironic, it's even a little bit jazzy, and I just think this music sets the mood perfectly. So, Grim Fandango, the story of Manny Calavera. If you haven't experienced the game, if you haven't experienced the story, it's actually available on iPad, and it's just a wonderful game. And this music just, is part of that wonderful experience. So Grim Fandango, even a cool soundtrack just to listen to without playing the game.
Definitely. I mean, Grim Fandango is an awesome game, and I've played it back then. I haven't played remaster, but it's a wonderful story, and the soundtrack adds so much to the different characters and the story setting. And my favorite part is the second year when he's all in that sort of Casablanca feeling. It's just so great how the music fits and how it gets the scenes to life, which is ironic because everyone is dead in that game. But that's such a great choice, and definitely a game I should really play again.
Just listening to the music made me go back to the iPad and playing it again. But some of the riddles are really, really difficult, and I don't want to look up a walkthrough or whatever, so I'm taking my time playing through it again.
It's certainly one of the harder adventures LucasArts made. Yeah. But a good one.
A very good one, yeah. What's your next choice?
I also wanted to include an adventure game because adventure games have that. They do a lot with music. And so it was very hard to pinpoint which adventure game I would use for this, because next I wanted to showcase the MIDI capabilities of the PC, that mostly by using the Roland MT32. And I decided to take one of my favorite adventure games ever, which is Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers from 1993. And what I took is Gabriel's theme from the title music. Gabriel's theme is something that I would consider as iconic because it connects so well to the character. It's used over and over in the game as a leitmotif, and even when you get points. It's a wonderful change from the more aggressive part of the title theme to the more subdued part where Gabriel's theme is. And this one is played on as I said, on the MT32. It was a Roland synthesizer that you could buy for your PC. And for a time, this really became a sort of a de facto standard for MIDI music on the PC until General MIDI kind of took over. And it was really an expensive device. It cost about $500, which would probably nowadays be about $1,200, something like that. And it had a very real equivalent of real instruments. It sounded very good, and one of the specialities the device had was it could have up to 32 voices simultaneously, and you could combine sort of, they called it partials of an instrument into a single voice, and that just sounded great. And Sierra always had great MT32 music, and this one is by Robert Holmes, one that actually just made music for Gabriel Knight, for the 3 Gabriel Knight games, and not much else. But I surely wish he would, because I think he did a great job.
Yeah, I listened to it, obviously, and it's really nice music. Yeah, it's really nice music. And similarly to the Doom theme from my list, I think General MIDI, I think that was the time when you could actually listen to game music without feeling that the music was just something that was programmed and just something that, this is how much space we have on the cartridge, or this is how much space we have on the disc or whatever. Let's fill it with some music. I think General MIDI, that was when I think music in games started to grow up a little bit, but it was more music and less programming.
Yes, definitely. This was real cheap music they played in with a keyboard and stuff. So there is no more programming the sine wave or whatever they needed to do to get the sound working. So this is, real musician work. Yeah. So now it's your last one, isn't it?
My last one, yeah.
Okay.
From Orient the Blind Forest, Restoring the Light, Facing the Dark by Gareth Cooker. We've talked about the Ori games a couple of weeks ago, and this part of the first Ori game of Blind Forest is my favorite part of both of the Ori games. Generally speaking, the music in both Ori games is beautiful, but Restoring the Light Facing the Dark is plays during your escape from the Ginso tree. And I think everyone who's played Ori and the Blind Forest loves the Ginso tree level, because I think it's where the gameplay or where the gameplay mechanics of Ori are actually at its best. And the part I just played was from the last escape segment where the water is coming in and you have to probably get through about 1 minute or maybe even more of uninterrupted gameplay to get out of the Ginso tree while the water is coming. And what I really liked about this music is, first of all, it is beautiful. It keeps you engaged. It's exciting. So it really helps you kind of making these jumps and kind of dashing and whatever. And what I really enjoyed was, and that's kind of a deliberate choice by the game makers, when you die, and I have to be honest, I died many, many, many times. There are two things that happened. First of all, you are immediately back at the beginning of the sequence, so no loading screen, nothing. So you can try right away. You don't have to wait. And the music keeps going. So by not stopping the music, by kind of keeping the momentum, it plays, music doesn't lose a beat. It doesn't feel like you're kind of always thrown back in the beginning. It's turns it into one of these kind of, it's an epic action sequence, and it does not get stopped, full stop when you die. It keeps the momentum going, and I think that's what I especially like about this part. So yeah, the more you die, the longer you have this awesome music uninterrupted. So kind of a pretty cool thing there.
You could have taken any song from Ori and the Blind Forest, and it would have been a great tune to listen to, because it's just an awesome soundtrack. But combining with your intention of looking at the music from a gameplay perspective, I think you have taken the perfect point of Ori and the Blind Forest to show what the music can do when you play the game. So that's there's really nothing I could add to that. It's perfect. Thank you.
What's your last choice?
My last choice is now one that uses digitized music, which is what I think everyone always wanted, because you can do everything with digitized music. You're no longer, you have to see what your sound card is capable of. You no longer need to make your music for different sound cards. Now you could give your music in a way that you intend, and you know it's always exactly what you wanted to have. And one game that does a pretty great job with that is the 2014 Legend of Grimrock 2, the main theme. Honestly, I listened to that and I just would like to start the game again and get on to adventuring. It has a similar effect like the one you explained for Hyrule Field in Zelda. in a way, it just gets me going. It gets me to want to gather my party and start dungeon crawling, because that is what Legend of Grimrock 2 is, a dungeon crawler. Essentially a very old school dungeon crawler, just with new technology, very well made game. And this song is not by a single man. This is actually made by a company called Scoring Helsinki. It's a company that actually does advertisement music and stuff for presentations, and they don't have a lot of experience with games. I think it's still their only game, but I'm not quite sure about that one. I think it's okay. They nailed it, like a lot of companies that are out there that create trailer music or something. They have the right energy for the game, and I like it a lot. It's a fun tune.
It doesn't feel as generic as other trailer music or corporate music sounds. So it for me, it actually feels very intentional, rousing, and I can see the intentional similarities between kind of something like Zelda or any other soundtrack adventure scoring. They're definitely trying to do that, and from what I can hear, they definitely deliver. It's a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah, it sure is. All right, well, I think we're through, aren't we?
Those were the 5 we settled on. I think obviously there's more than 5 that we had to leave off our lists.
Oh, yes.
But even going into honorable mentions at this point would definitely take another hour or whatever. And I would suggest we do that in another episode.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we really want to make more of these music episodes because we both love music. We love music, we love movies, we love computer games, we love video games. There are a lot of stuff that we would like to show you guys, not just ourselves. So this is certainly something we'll come back to.
Definitely.
Is there anything you want to add?
Nothing really, just that it was really exciting to get your list, because I've definitely have to listen to some of these complete soundtracks in the next few days. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to learn about new music. It's fun to explore stuff you haven't heard before. That is why we actually will have a Spotify link in our show notes. We invite you to go there and explore a little bit more about the choices we have made. And there you can listen to some renditions of our choices in their full length. It's not quite as easy to get some of these older things on Spotify, but for some of them, we managed to have some remixes that sounded very, very similar to what the original sounded. Don't you think, Greg?
Yes, definitely. So if you want to listen to a little bit more, the Spotify playlist, and usually on the Spotify playlist, well, you know where to click to listen to the whole albums.
Exactly. Then let's wrap this up, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
We shall. So then this is it for this week. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. We're on all major podcasting services and on YouTube and on www.passionofthegeeks.com. You can send questions and suggestions to passionofthegeeks@gmail.com. And you can find us on Twitter at PassionOTGeeks. Well then, it was fun, Greg.
Yes, it was. Take care, Pat.
Take care, Greg. Toch pa, toch be. Bye.